everybody. I'm Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and everybody's got a price for lazy booking. Hey, this is your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, and you're listening to Lazy Booking. No, it's true. It's damn true. Ho! Hey, folks, I'm WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and if you want to know what's going on in wrestling, check out Lazy Bookings. Ho!
Welcome, one and all, to a brand new edition of Lazy Booking right here on A2DRadio.com. Brought to you by Gibson Mayer LLC, your certified public accounts located at 301 Oxford Valley Road in Yardley, PA. You give them a call at 215-369-3300. Hey, taxes, they're coming up, and they'll be here before you know it. So be ready, be prepared, and call Gibson Mayer. Nope, no bumps.
Nice. And don't forget about tax season because we got IRS right there looking at the fam right now to remind them.
We do.
Lazy Booking also brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy. You can find them in Princeton, Burlington, or in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Also find them on the web at specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Welcome, guys, live from the Real Talk Studios. This is Lazy Booking. You're here with the Ginger Gang. Maddie Sinsudi, Chrome, Ryan Brodo over on the ones and twos. We got a lot to talk about tonight.
Yes, we do.
We got the rare week where you have a review and a preview.
Yes.
As we go back over Evolution and also preview the upcoming Crown Jewel pay-per-view that is on this Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And it's also kind of funny. You had the all-women's pay-per-view on Sunday, and now you have the all-men's pay-per-view on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk about all that. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Instagram. We're excited to talk to the fam tonight. Our Scanzano Sports poll question of the week after watching WWE Evolution. How did it go as far as your expectations, or did it meet your expectations? Yes, no, or it exceeded them? So we're going to dive right in.
All right, then.
First time in WWE history, an all-women's pay-per-view. And I have to say, I'm going to start off for once. I was actually very satisfied with it. I thought in a lot of ways it exceeded my expectations, particularly when you talk about bringing back, talent from, previous years. And we're talking 20 years past their prime. But I thought top to bottom, I thought the card was structured really well. We're going to dive into when we get into specifics. But when you talk about Becky Lynch and Charlotte in the last woman standing match, boy, that's one of the better, when you talk about men, women, or whoever, as far as that kind of a match or just in general, the drama, the story that built up to it and the way that it carried out and the story was told in that match, that was one of the best last man or last women standing matches I've ever seen. Might be one of the best overall women's matches as far as storyline telling that I've ever possibly seen.
It was great because of two things. Firstly, it was as hard-hitting as Sasha and Charlotte in the Hell in the Cell.
More.
Even more, yeah, because they did a lot of crazy things there. And two, it really just kind of showed, if you ever question, could women carry a pay-per-view or could women carry a main event, if you are still questioning that, you have no possible way of legitimizing your argument anymore. I don't know how you could possibly argue that already, but if you still were, it's about time you gave up, because
welcome to 2018.
Yeah, because that
for real
matchup right there, I felt like I was watching two men wrestlers go at it because it was such a well-done match. I'm not used to it from females, and I'm very happy that I got to see that. I was very happy I got to see a match like that from two very phenomenal female athletes who put it all out there on the line and pretty much did just as well, if not better, than two men in a last man standing match.
Well, I do believe in terms of, this whole women's evolution and revolution that started. Now it's an evolution.
Yes.
I have heard where, and I've heard this from men and women, that, it is great. I love seeing it. I for years have always had my women's wrestlers that I've really liked, but there's been a time, and really you talk up to like 5 years ago and the 15 years that preceded that, there was never a consistency of talent through the women's division. But you kind of see how it has revolutionized and evolved to what it's become today. And to be able to see these women go through and really at a time where this was like put up or shut up time, this was a big deal. It really was. And the argument I've heard a lot is just that, every time you turn around now, is WWE just capitalizing and on this whole women's thing, and now they're kind of shoving it in your face. And by no means do I think that whatsoever. But it's been, and not that I've heard a lot of arguments that it is, but I think if there was a legitimate gripe, you would have seen it through this pay-per-view. 100%, these women went out there. They knew that they had to give their absolute best because there was a lot, I believe, that would have been riding on this pay-per-view. Because we know that we have the Beckys and the Charlottes and the Sasha Banks and those great women who kind of have accelerated the growth of the women's division. But I was even pleasantly surprised to see, the level of competitiveness and athleticism from some of the women who were 20 years past their prime. So to see how hard and kind of how much it's meant to them to get to that point, and to be able to go out and put on a show like that I could argue, I would argue overall might be a top 5 or 6 pay-per-view WWE's had outside of NXT this entire year, easily. I think that says an absolute lot. I mean, I was really impressed with the women, and I can't think of a match that underwhelmed me or didn't live up to an expectation that I had.
I mean, honestly, no, because really even the matches that you kind of thought, okay, they're just kind of there for filler, like the 6-woman tag match, even that was a really well-done match, So it's just like, and obviously someone could point out, yeah, but there was a few botches here, a few botches here. It's like, yeah, but that happens at every pay-per-view, and it happens more often with the guys than it does the women anymore these days, honestly. But here's the funny part. Who would have thought that something that, and this is kind of strange when you look back on it, have you ever noticed that the first company in North America, since WWE first tried doing the women's division thing in the mid-90s with the Lunder Blaze, who, props to her for getting into the Battle Royal, so, good for her.
And she lasted a decent amount of time. She wasn't just a toss-out. We'll definitely get into that. Me and Brodo were talking about that.
But what I was going to say was, isn't it weird, though, when you look back, because WCW never did anything like that. WWE kind of kicked it off to the side and turned it into who's the prettiest girl with the big, giant pneumatic tits. That was kind of what they were doing for a period of time.
Yeah.
TNA was actually kind of the first one to really bring in an actual wrestling division into the women's side of wrestling. Mm-hmm. And who would have thought that something that TNA did but eventually fucked up would eventually kind of brush over into WWE and eventually explode into what we have now? Who would have thought that, quite frankly, that it would have been something that kind of came from TNA and just drifted over into WWE, strangely enough.
See, I would beg to differ with you slightly. I don't think that Impact or TNA messed it up at all. I think the most consistent thing that they've had since, I'd have to look up the year. When was the women's title brought in? Was it?
I think it was 2000 and...
I have 2009 in my head, and I could be wrong.
I was thinking the same thing, because it was around the time Gail Kim, they made her the first Knockouts champion. Right. Awesome Kong was pretty much the dominant force there, as rightfully so, because she was probably the toughest wrestler they had on that roster for the women.
Well, that's actually, it has to be earlier than that, 09. In my head, it's something like 07 or 09 is in my head.
Could have been something like that, because I think at the time they were doing some goofy stable stuff in the main event.
Right.
I don't think it was main event Mafia time.
Right.
But it was something where Christian was still there, and he was with AJ Styles, and they were rivaling Jeff Jarrett or Samoa Joe or something like that. It was really stupid. All I know is that the Knockouts division was probably the best thing they had besides the X division at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about the life of, TNA and Impact, I think one of their more consistent high level divisions has been the women's division. They've always had very athletic, hard-working, very good working in the ring women who had identifiable, characters or personas. And you can go through the years that they've had from, you said Gail Kim, Awesome Kong, Velvet Sky, Angelina Love.
Madison
what were they?
Rain.
The beautiful people, Madison Rain.
You had Daphne for a short period of time.
Daphne was really good. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
they've had a lot of women that have worked through. And even now, look at Impact. Again, the thing, Impact is actually a pretty decent product now. And their women's division is excellent. And it's not in any kind of admiration that WWE has started to pick off the women and start bringing them in, like a Mia Yim, who's been, one of the best, in my opinion, women's wrestlers in the world. I say it every week, and I'll say it again. I won't be happy till they bring in Rosemary, because I love Rosemary, and I think Rosemary is one of the best characters and could really do a lot of great things in WWE. But no, I think that they were ahead of the curve for a long time.
They were.
And kudos to them for that. And some of their women now are beginning to reap some of those benefits with, opening some eyes and now getting opportunities in WWE with NXT and opening doors with the Mae Young Classic. So
yeah,
they showed it can happen. They were unable to show that it can happen on a massively large scale. So I think they pushed the envelope. And eventually WWE had to come around and start changing their mindset with it. And I think that it happened. And I give them a lot of credit because I truly believe that their women's division, and then Ring of Honor is also now kind of kicking off their own women's division, which is fairly new. They set a trend in wrestling. They were ahead of the curve a decade before anybody else.
It's crazy when you think about that, because when you think of TNA, usually it's to make a joke or usually it's to make fun of them. Mm-hmm. But oddly enough, one of the most revolutionary things they did, besides the X Division, was having a legitimate women's division in a North American promotion, which was completely unheard of at that time. And I think that's really crazy. The only company I think that's big right now that probably won't get in on the act of creating a giant women's division would probably be NJPW, only because Japan kind of has the women-only promotions.
Right.
That'll probably be the only company that doesn't have a women's division, but they don't necessarily need it. But that, to me, just shows, like, every company is now starting to follow that trend of, okay, we need a women's title, and we need it now because women are becoming the hottest commodity as pro wrestlers at this time.
We've been saying it. I think we all got on the bandwagon. I was a huge proponent for a long time for Becky Lynch to turn heel.
Yes.
And I will say it. I don't care what promotion it is, New Japan, Ring of Honor, Impact, AAA, any organization that you want to talk about, CZW, any of these, whether you're talking about the independents or you're talking to Top Notch. And there's a lot of amazing women right now in pro wrestling. There's a lot of really good characters in pro wrestling. I would argue that in any organization, the greatest thing going right now in pro wrestling is Becky Lynch.
Becky Lynch is fun because she's the only person who competes with her right now is Ciampa. Or Gargano, since now he's decided to go, heel in his own right. Mm-hmm. They're the only ones who really compete with her, at least WWE-wise, in the entire umbrella. I can't really think of anybody right now with Impact, because Aries, even though he basically went into business for himself, technically that won't count as a heel program. Yeah. I can't really say anybody's really competing with her right now besides them, because she's so much better at being a heel than a babyface. It's kind of funny when you think about it. When someone comes in as a babyface, you can't really think of them as a heel. But then when they start doing so well as a heel, you're like, why the fuck were they ever a babyface to begin with? Should have just been a heel right from the get-go, because they're better as a heel than they are as a babyface. And that's not to say Becky was bad. It was just that they booked her so badly that eventually it just became silly.
It was the booking, it was the creative, the Straight Fire and Becky Balboa and all that stuff. It got way out of hand and was ridiculous. And she kind of got lost in the shuffle. You could make the argument now as far as women heels in professional wrestling. You know, everybody talks about that great run that Charlotte have. I could argue that she is rivaling that and is not far from surpassing even the level that Charlotte was at for a while.
True.
She's getting
True.
there. And, you know, some people will make the argument, well, she's still getting cheered, but man, it's because she's the best thing going right now.
Because here's the thing, and this is why I think it works, is because even though people like to say kayfabe is dead, I'm like, it doesn't have to be. If you can be kayfabe if you want. Like, sometimes I wish WWE was still a little strict on it. Like, you're going to be kayfabe to an extent. You know, you don't have to be kayfabe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But when you're on social media, make that, you know, nasty little tweet or bitch at somebody over the internet or whatever. Do something, you know, just do something like Ciampa did. And he got super fucking hated.
Listen, like right after Evolution, she sent out a tweet with, it was like a screenshot where Ronda Rousey followed her.
Yeah.
And the comment simply was just, she tried. Like,
yeah.
Amazing. I love it.
And the best part of it was, like, you know, they had that little showdown at the end of the show, you know, where they just kept saying champ to each other. Just like, see, that is why it's great when someone who knows how to be heel is given the ball and said, go run, go score a touchdown.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what they did, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
Some of the comments from the fam on Facebook already rolling in. David Roska says hello. What's up, Roska? Mike Matarak says, go get 'em, boys. Loved Evolution. Becky is hashtag the man. Or not hashtag, in quotes. David Roska asks, what's up, boys? Who's the greatest hardcore champion of all time and the greatest IC champion of all time?
Ooh.
Interesting question.
That is a good question.
What I'll say here, Roska, particularly after Survivor Series, we're going to have a little bit of a slow time. We did the greatest European champion of all time. Me and Maddie have talked about bringing some of those other tournaments back for like a gimmicky week every now and then. So we'll save that. On the podcast, we did Intercontinental Champion, but I'd like to revisit that.
We should probably maybe do a coin flip or something like that if we do heads or tails and see which title we wind up getting for the end. The hardcore title will be real fun. That'll be real interesting.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Next week's a preview show, or I'm sorry, a recap show. But why don't you guys let us know which one of those two you want to do, and why don't we do it for the second half of the show next week?
I'm fine with that.
Second half, we'll do unless there's some catastrophically crazy news in pro wrestling where we push it back a week. Next week, we'll do one of the tournaments. So you guys let us know what you want to do. If you want us to do a greatest hardcore champion or greatest intercontinental champion of all time, we'll do that. And then whichever one you don't pick, we'll save it and we'll do it towards the end of the month.
Absolutely.
Give us a little time. We'll post some stuff on the social media. You guys can help, kind of contribute some stuff to it.
Yeah.
Roscoe also said he thought that Sunday night was awesome. Bob McGee exceeded his expectations. Chris Ross thought it was a great pay-per-view. Frank Vespi says, hey, yo, sorry to bother you at work. Was disappointed for a pay-per-view named Evolution. Where was Triple H, Randy Orton, Batista, and Ric Flair? Just kidding. All women's pay-per-view worked for WWE.
That would have been real interesting if they had done the old Evolution logo, which was like the naked chick in like the wine glass.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Could you? Oh, God. Right before Crown Jewel, too, with the whole thing with Crown Jewel. Andy Ritter says, shock, TNA messed something up. David Roska in 2007, they did the Knockouts division. The Knockouts division should have started back in 2002. Andy says, no, Becky is the best. There's no competition. Jamie Salmon says Becky is stone cold-esque. I agree that she is on that level right now. And David Roska said Becky said something to Bliss. Yeah, I don't know what she said to Bliss, but no, I mean Jamie's point is valid because you're looking, and we always talk about kind of like we talked a lot with Miz's kind of rise over the last 6 months, 7, 8 months.
From mid-card to main event.
We've given a lot of props to Miz for the growth that he's had over the last year and a half. But even where he's at, and as great of a heel as he's been, Becky is, I mean, because there was the question when all this first started, is she really turning heel, or is it just they're going to do the Becky with an attitude kind of a deal? But to me, the confirmation, hands down, was the Edge promo.
Absolutely. But, here's the thing, though. That doesn't – just because she's turned heel doesn't mean she isn't going to get cheered. It doesn't mean that she won't eventually
No.
turn into like the female version of Austin, because in 97 or 96, I believe it was, when Austin did the first ever Austin 316 says, "I just whipped your ass" promo, which of course set the whole world on fire after that.
At Crown Jewel 97. I mean, I'm sorry, King of the Ring. It's the same pay-per-view. Me and brother were talking about it. They got a friggin' crown in the logo. Crown Jewel 96.
Yeah, true. Wouldn't be surprised if the winner gets a shot at SummerSlam next year. Anyway, but Austin, you know, they did everything in their power to make him a heel.
Yeah.
Like, they did everything. They had him attack Brian Pillman when he was hurt.
Yep.
Didn't work. They even had him do a swirly to him like a bully in the bathroom, which to me is still freaking hilarious. I still laugh at that. They had him do everything in their power to make Austin a bad guy, and it didn't work because they loved him so much because he was such a bad guy that they fell in love with him. They preferred him over Brett, and that, of course, led to the double switch at WrestleMania 13. Yeah, so.
Yeah, and I think that was at a time, too, where a lot of people are, you know, the public was changing. What people wanted, the consumer was changing, and it was more about living vicariously through these characters, which I do think we get a lot of today.
Yeah.
You know, and Austin kind of set that trend of, you know, let's live vicariously through all these characters. And, you know, who doesn't want to tell their boss to, you know, go screw themselves and flip the middle finger and drop them with a stunner?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, every now and then, too. I love my boss. I'm just kidding. But, you know, every now and then, I just would love to just drop somebody with a stunner every now and then, you know?
We've all had, if not a boss, we've always had that one person in life that if we could, we would just like to give him one of these, kick him in the gut, and put a stunner on his ass, and then just walk away with a beer in hand. Like, that's pretty much everybody's ultimate fantasy come true right there.
Couple on YouTube real quick. Hector, he says, "What's up, guys? I love you guys." Hector, we love you too, man. We appreciate you jumping in.
All love here.
He says, Y2J, I'm assuming for Intercontinental Champion, Hardcore Champion. He says Hardcore Holly.
That's
another great choice, interesting choice.
The big shot.
And he says he hated the Hardcore belt. Oh, I'm sorry. Zill Jones. I apologize, Zill. Zill Jones was the one who said Hardcore Holly. And I'm thinking Hector may have agreed with that. But yeah, Hector just confirms he really hated that belt. That was the irony of the belt, though, man. It was just it was literally an old belt that they had laying around somewhere, and the best part was like it was kind of beat up. But, like, it got way more smashed up. When you see what it first looked like, and it looked like they pulled it out of a dumpster, and then as time went on, it was even more cracked up. It was like almost like every 2 months they would start cracking it more with a hammer.
Well, what's funny is, too, by the time they retired the thing, it was more leather than it was actual belt and just the tape. Yeah. That's all that there was left of the belt by the time it was officially retired.
Yeah, it was amazing. And that was never something that was expected to go for a long time.
No. And if anything, too, no one really expected it to be an actual belt. The original premise of the Hardcore title was Vince McMahon gave it to Mankind as sort of, here's your belt, Mick. And it was just a joke. That was the whole reason why he had it. But then eventually Boss Man took it from him, and then they decided to make it an actual title.
So Zill Jones says, "Man, those were the years. Attitude Era Wrestling will never be as big as it was then. I miss those days." He also says that was the old WWF winged belt. It was one of the old belts.
It wasn't actually, and a lot of people always used to rumor that it was the same one that they took from Hogan that Mr. Perfect smashed with a hammer on, I believe it was a Superstars taping or maybe a Saturday Night's Main Event. Actually, it wasn't. They just had a belt that they destroyed, and they gave it to Mick.
Gamer Boy says, "I'm from Egypt, and I want to say that all the WWE superstars take money to come to grown, so they must go and shut up." Yeah, I don't know what that means.
I just typed as A2D. Okay.
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 Yeah, I don't know. I don't understand what that is. I guess he's saying they're greedy. I don't know. Anyway.
Okay.
And we'll talk about them going over to Crown Jewel, by the way, as the show goes on. But yeah, I mean, here's what I'll say about. I'll respond to Zill with the Attitude Era. And I'm not familiar with these, though. So if you're new to the show, awesome. We appreciate it. I hope you come back. We're here every Thursday night at 7:30. The Attitude Era, and I know we're kind of getting off base. We'll get back because we're gonna. But I do want to say this. When I look at wrestling, the way I view it now is different than I did then, and I can always say, I mean, some of the best times I ever had was watching the Attitude Era. But I look at wrestling now, and first of all, storyline wise, what was great was they utilized more talent and put them in more high profile storylines. But the problem was those storylines, when you look at outside of the main event with Austin, Rock, Mankind, Big Show, Undertaker, all those guys, Hunter, no question that was the golden era of the main event era. Especially a lot of them were young guys just hitting it.
That and by the time they got to about around 2000, the tag team era was that was the golden era of both of those divisions.
But you really look, a lot of times now going back, a lot of that's hard to watch. A lot of it didn't stand the test of time.
No, it did not age well.
And I'll admit, maybe I'm just getting old, but like we're talking about, this is a show about the women, right? And I go back and listen, I love beautiful women. And, when I was a kid, that was like, it was like not having to watch the scrambled porn. You know what I mean? Like for all intents and purposes, I loved that stuff. Like, but
no matter
now
what
I'm an adult and a lot of it's harder to watch, especially because my expectation and my view on women now and what they can do, and particularly just to center it back to wrestling, what they're capable of is so much more than what was portrayed back then. I just feel like the Attitude Era doesn't stand the test of time overall outside of the main event picture.
Well, here's the thing, too. Like, the thing about it is when you look at the Attitude Era, the major reason why things were so different back then was two reasons. First, most of the talent either took money that was guaranteed to leave WWE or not go to WWE and go to WCW, knowing they were probably going to be underutilized but paid well. Mm-hmm. So what would you do? Work almost 300 days a year to try and possibly make the money Ted Turner's going to pay you? Or sit on your ass at home and only work maybe 3 or 4 weeks out of the year and make that shit ton of money, maybe do some house shows? Not a hard choice,
Yeah, and you could still see those kinds of storylines and such in sparses in different places, and you could see a little bit edgier of promos and whatnot. I think the difference in the way I see it now, when I was a kid, my parents didn't want to watch it with me. I was kind of old enough. I was a teenager that I could kind of do what I wanted, but my parents didn't want to watch it with me. They didn't enjoy it. And probably if they would have sat and watched it with me, I probably wouldn't have been watching a lot of it. But now as an adult, and I don't have any children. A personal fact about me, Chrome has no children that he knows about out there. But when I get and I sit and I watch it with like my best friend's son, my nephew Richie, and like kind of seeing the joy that they get, or like my friends who have children, and we go to autograph signs and seeing all that, like there's no way that I would ever let those kids watch that stuff. And like I get as excited about it now as I did then, just kind of I'm loving it how I love it, and then kind of seeing their joy of it develop. That's why I don't miss the Attitude Era. Like I'm always able to go back and kind of relive it when I have those moments, but I'm not crazy about it.
Well, in a way, you could parallel it almost to this with hockey. In the 90s and the 80s, and especially the 70s, the fighting. That's what sold hockey, especially in the United States. But there was always those fans that loved a great game, that went back and forth, had great plays, had great highlight moments, even though a goalie made a phenomenal save or a beautiful shot was taken on a great passing play. Guys like me can enjoy that just as much as two guys scrapping. Well, not everybody could do that, and hockey at its height had a lot of fighting. Whereas wrestling at its height had a lot of the sex, drugs, and the rock and roll, and as time went along, that faded away, And the traditional wrestling fans, the fans like you and I who can appreciate a really good match, can still sit down and get something out of it. The fan that kind of wanted to go there for the TNA and, the crazy comedy stuff that they would come up with, Jerry Lawler being a dirty pervert on the microphone, those fans kind of left after that.
Like, listen, ECW would never last now.
No.
It barely lasted. It barely lasted its last year and a half in the 2000s because things started changing.
Well, not only that too. I mean, look at the extreme promotions nowadays. I mean, CZW and all the other extreme promotions out there.
Yeah.
They don't just have the death matches and the barbed wire and the bloody matches. They have them, but they have a lot of just straightforward wrestling matches mixed in there on a 3-hour show half the time when you go see them. So it's not the same as it used to be. With ECW, yeah, they had some wrestling, but there was a lot more violence than there is now.
I gotcha. All right, so going back over real quick to the fam over on YouTube, Hector says Foley was the best hardcore champ. It's hard to argue that one, too. Rosca says they made a big mistake going to Saudi Arabia. Hector, he loves the Attitude Era, the wrestling these days. He thinks it sucks. The women wrestlers are better than the guys. There's some of them for sure. Listen, I think that there's just as many great women wrestlers as there are men and just as many not great women wrestlers as there are men. I don't think there's much of a differentiation anymore. Gamer Boy says, I'm sorry, but I'm talking about John and Brian and this man who's talking bad about greatest Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. And TY, I'm assuming, says thank you. I'm assuming he's talking to Rosca, who says Brian and Cena did not go to Saudi Arabia, which we know, thank you. Zill Jones says, what's up, Davey, bro? And Zill Jones says, WCW has some great wrestling in their mid-cards back then. Top-notch matches, there were main events, not so much top guys that they were old. Agreed. I agree with a lot of that, and I'm loving what Zill's bringing to the table today, I got to say. So I hope you chime in with us every week, Zill. I don't want to get – we've already kind of gotten well off course.
Yeah,
I want to bring it back to the women.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. That's the thing about pro wrestling. You start talking about how wonderful Becky Lynch is doing, and then the parallels start to Steve Austin, which then takes it – this is why every week we try to follow a format, but we always end up somewhere on the other side of the spectrum.
Formats, what are those things?
But that's pro wrestling, man. But, yeah, so let's get to the card. Bring up the card for me.
Sure.
I'd love to kind of go down and break down a little bit of the card. And I gotta give Frank a props, man. I'm loving the new look on YouTube. So thumbs up to our boy Frank over there. Great job, buddy.
Doing all them graphics.
He's doing a great job.
Now, let me...
Freddie Mercury if it was last night. He was dressed up as Freddie Mercury yesterday.
Nice. By the way, I can't wait to go see that movie.
Frank also chimes in, scrambled porn, # best porn.
Nah, no matter what you did, you could have tried everything in the world, could never get that channel unscrambled.
No.
No matter what you did.
Man, we were kids. The things we used to do, it's crazy.
Oh, God. All right. So
let's bring it back. Let's get down. So we're going to recap Evolution. Again, I thought it was a really good pay-per-view. It definitely exceeded my expectations. So
let's see here. We had it's a shame. We had a dark match that no one saw with the UK women's title. But anyway, tag team match.
Which was upsetting because I know they promoted it originally and then they took it off of the main card. And I was a little disappointed that they didn't make that part of the main card. I haven't seen it, and I'm sure I could probably look it up. But
the only reason why it surprises me is that you're the WWE Network, and you're still doing dark matches on a show. I don't know. That to me, that's
I think there's still it's still they have restrictions with the pay-per-view blocks unless they totally come off of pay-per-view altogether.
I got you.
They're going to always have restrictions on time with pay-per-views.
That's a good point. All right, tag team matchup. Lita and Trish against Alicia Fox and Mickie James. And, of course, obviously the elephant in the room, Alexa Bliss was in the corner, but because she had an injury, Alicia had to substitute for her.
So she's in concussion protocol. And, again, so starting off with that, first of all, I thought it was smart to come out and kind of give people that instant pop with bringing out Team Bestie. And I thought that Alicia Fox for filling in, and the one thing I'll say about Alicia Fox, longest tenured woman right now in the company, one of the longest tenured women in the history of the company.
Holy shit! Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and she may actually be the longest tenured woman consistently that's ever been with the company. I have to look that up. I know she's one of.
Yeah, she could be because, yeah, because let's see, Trish came in '99. I think late '99, and
Yeah.
she was there. She wrestled until what, around 2005? I think was the time period. And Lita came in around to '99 as well, 2000, and lasted until about what, 2007,
Yeah.
2008. Damn.
Yeah, she's been with the company a long time. And my gripe with Alicia, I'm one of the few people, I kind of enjoy the crazy gimmick that she does. Sometimes it's a little much, but I kind of enjoy it. I miss when she would go up to the people in the crowd and like grab their popcorn, start eating it, and then dump it on their head and stuff. I thought that stuff was funny because when she started doing it, it was something different that you didn't expect. But she can be a good worker, but she can get sloppy. But I thought that overall she worked really well. And for as far as filling in for Alexa Bliss, who, listen, is one of the most coveted women as far as a top program that people enjoy watching, in the company. And I thought that to have to step in her shoes, I thought she did a very strong job. Mickie James, phenomenal job again as usual. And I thought it was a pretty good match. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I got you on that one. It was an interesting matchup. I was kind of wondering what was going to happen. Were they going to downplay? Were they going to downplay a little bit because of the fact that Alexa wasn't in the match? Because unfortunately, with Alexa not being in the match, it kind of takes away a little bit from the story. But it looks like they didn't really hold anything back. I mean, Lita and Trish, they gave it their all, and they still were able to, all right, they can still pull off some shit right here. It's been a while, There's a little bit of rust there, but nothing bad. That's your biggest worry when you see somebody like Trish or Lita coming in and they didn't have a warm-up match or anything like that, and it's been how many years since they wrestled. But it really does show when you've gone through the training, it's kind of like riding a bike. You never really forget it. It really shows how much it's like riding a bike. They really just kind of picked it right back up where it left off in a few moments here or there, but it looked good. I was like, all right, that's nice. It's nice to see.
And you saw the spot in the corner where you had the Team Extreme kind of a move, Lita didn't have the lift that she used to have, but that was fine. I still thought it came off really good with the splash in the corner. And, no, I thought it was a good match. And, obviously Team Bestie gets the W in that match.
Of course. All right. So
good opener. I thought it was a good choice for the opener of the pay-per-view. I wonder where it would have been on the card had Alexa been able to compete. I don't think the result would have been different. I think that Mickie probably would have taken the pin then.
Yes.
So
I honestly think they probably would have pushed that back. I think the 6-woman tag match would have been the opening contest if it hadn't been for that. All right then. So to our next matchup, the 20-women Battle Royale, which Nia Jax did come up with the victory on that one. Surprisingly though, Asuka got eliminated by I think it was Ember.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, wow, they are really pushing Ember now.
Yeah.
Because they're having Ember eliminate Asuka. They're having her last the longest in this Battle Royal here. So they really got plans for Ember. And I will say this, one thing I did notice about Ember, they are doing such a really great job of booking her because they're not putting her in any program that's going to kill her. They're not doing anything foolish with her.
No.
They're keeping her relevant, but they're keeping her kind of as that hidden ace up the sleeve, that at any point when they feel like it's time, they'll pull it out. And they're like, all right, let's see what Ember can do in the main event slot.
Yeah, and I think that, see, that's a great point because I believe what they do too much of, and we saw it with even more recently, both men and women, Asuka and Shinsuke are two very big examples of this, is they're throwing immediately in, they have these amazing NXT runs, and deservingly they should be up on the main roster. Very easily argued that they were down for too long, but it's almost like it's like getting this new toy that you're so overly enthusiastic about that you just you take it to the extreme. So immediately if you're not going to put the title belt on them immediately, you need to give them a little bit of time to work on the main roster and let it breathe. You know, and I think that Asuka should have been where she was. I didn't have a major issue with her losing to Charlotte at Mania. But then they went through with the Carmella thing. And to me, there was no need to throw Asuka to the wolves against Carmella. Even though they did a bunch of screwy, dusty finishes and goofy finishes with James Ellsworth, which I thought the way that was executed made her look even worse. And then you look at Nakamura. You can't have them come up, be, these huge figures in NXT, and then if you're going to put them in the main event picture, have them lose title program after title program. It kills the validity of them.
In a way, it does. Yeah, it does, because unfortunately, Nakamura, who had such fanfare coming up to that main roster, and he came up before Asuka, and because Asuka she was so hot in NXT, because of that undefeated streak. And that was the other thing too. If you're going to bring Asuka up, but you're going to have her lose at Mania, why even mention the streak? You can mention it, but it's almost like, in a way, I feel like the way they killed the streak wasn't exactly the right way to kill it. Don't get me wrong. Should Charlotte beating the streak, I have no problem with that. Charlotte, if anyone deserves to do it, it's her. But I feel like, it's like when something's hot, you don't kill it. It's like it's the same thing with for specifically Asuka. I would say the way that they killed off her streak, it's not as bad as what WCW did with Goldberg, but the way they did Goldberg was bad, and I feel like WWE, they were just a step up from that, but it was kind of executed poorly as time went along, because eventually they made her look weaker as it went forward. Again, I feel like it's like, okay, if it's working right now, let's wait a moment here. If it starts to get a little too repetitive, that's when it's like, all right, we're going to wind this thing down.
See, here's where I'm going to disagree with you. I think that they did the right thing by building that matchup with Charlotte at WrestleMania and absolutely promoting this streak. My issue when it comes to these kinds of things, these undefeated streaks and whatnot, and you notice that they're starting to mention Ronda's undefeated streak now more and more, which I'm a little bit hesitant of. I have no problem with it, but it's hard for me to believe that someone can win every match for 500 or 400 days and then lose one match and then just lose every match after that.
Yeah.
They did. Perfect example is Rusev.
Yes.
Rusev was this unbeatable force, Bulgarian brute. And then he lost to Cena at WrestleMania, which was totally fine with me. But he has just been, for all intents and purposes, he's become, I don't want to say he's been a jobber, but he's pretty damn close to it, where he's doing the job for a lot of people. And it's hard for me to believe that now you can't win any match after you won every match for a year and a half.
And it's sad, too, because then it's just like, after Rusev kind of got relegated to just being the guy who does the job, eventually he gets back over by doing the whole Rusev Day thing. And it took forever for WWE to even acknowledge it, let alone even do the merch, and let alone even try to remotely do any kind of programs around it. It was just like they just threw every swerve they could at poor Rusev. But
they had the perfect out with Asuka. They had the perfect out because you have Charlotte win, and now you could say, right away people came out, is there going to be a rematch, yada, yada, yada. But then I was fine. Carmella cashed in the next night, or 2 nights later, and took it off of Charlotte. That's fine, because now you have the out to where you don't have to have that immediate rematch. You could build the anticipation. And guess what? Asuka already lost her number 1 contendership. You don't have to throw her into the main event program. You can build her back up, and she can lose a match every now and then now, but the way how they made her look so ridiculous against Carmella through that whole program immediately after the loss, that was a terrible 4-month stretch for her.
Oh, wait, and here's the other thing, too. And I will say this, too. I still believe, when I brought it up the last time when they were about to go into the match with Carmella, I really thought they should have just done, this would have made Asuka look stronger, if they had just had Absolution, who had been released by Paige. They were out on their own. Yes, they would be once again in a stable with somebody else. But the thing is, but here's my thing though.
I don't want to see any of that.
But here's the thing though.
It's another screwy way to make Asuka look stupid. I hate
well,
it.
No. It doesn't necessarily, because instead of her looking like a moron, looking at James Ellsworth for 20 minutes, she literally can get jumped by 2 female wrestlers from behind. It is nothing against Asuka. She got jumped. It's a little bit more believable that somebody loses a match because they got jumped than staring at James Ellsworth for 5 minutes and then getting rolled up.
Or you could just do none of that and not have Asuka immediately go back into the title program.
Well, you don't have to do that either. I'm just saying, if worse came to worse, if you were going to go that route, at least go with the route where it's like, okay, she got jumped by 2 wrestlers. Okay, and that wrestlers are now trying to stop her from allowing her to get that title shot. She doesn't have to get another title shot after that. She could just get cut off immediately, and then she has to fight her way back to get into that title, kind of build herself back up as this dominant force that's going to eventually get that title,
Right.
and you know it's coming.
We won't agree on this because I can't. There's no need. They don't even need to do all that. There's no justification needed when you lose to Charlotte at WrestleMania. If it was a loss to Naomi at WrestleMania, that's a different story. When you talk about this woman was undefeated for 400 and whatever many days, and she lost to who many look at as the best, possibly the best women's wrestler in the world today, you don't have to justify her not being in that title picture or coming right back. Hey, man, tip your cap, you lost. Just like they always say, you go back to the back of the line, you earn your way back up. And then she can go back and she can go in tag matches or do whatever and build that steam back up. You had a way to get out of the streak. If it was someone like Naomi and now you got to do something to save face for Asuka, that makes a lot of sense. But you lost to Charlotte. And that was your out. You lost to Charlotte, and then you protected Charlotte by having her lose because of the Money in the Bank. Everybody was protected, and you can build towards this later. That was my biggest issue, but instead they just let the crap continue to roll down the hill on Asuka.
Well, if they didn't do that,
I'm
then,
more mad about her than Nakamura.
Yeah, because here's the thing, because of the fact that she had that undefeated streak, and undefeated streaks are tricky in pro wrestling because it is tough to say when it is time for it to end, because you could wait until the fans really get tired of it. But you don't know when that's going to happen, and then you got to worry about, okay, well, we don't want to bury this person, and they got to go up against Asuka because she's already wrestled this person 5 times. And then you run into that worry. We're like, well, shit, now we got to have her lose a match clean.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say, if not do the title match after that, you could have done something where she worked her way back up, and you could have done it to the moment where Asuka she just has a list of all the female wrestlers on SmackDown, and she just crosses one off right after the other and goes right through every single one of them. And not only beats them, but looks like she beats them down to the point where they would never want to step in the ring with her again.
And that's a great point. They could still do something like that now and try to salvage her.
True.
First, I'm just going to say, Greg Malakovic said, I really enjoyed it, especially the Foxy botch job where Mickey was yelling at Foxy to save her. But he said it definitely exceeded his expectations. Andy Ritter, which is what kind of chimes in, it ties your old kind of a theory into what they could do now. If we're not getting women tag belts, which I believe that is still a vision, I just don't know when.
Yeah.
But he says if they're not getting it, then we need Asuka to turn on Naomi and have Asuka just run through everybody on SmackDown. That's when you can be like, this is this goofy glow and all this crap that she does is stupid. Asuka's going to turn into a machine now, and then she's just going to start picking them off on SmackDown. Start with the Iconics. You could do it with a couple of heels, and then boom, start running off all the faces in there until you eventually get. I think Asuka, in the end, is going to be the one to defeat Becky because I think Charlotte's going to win the Women's Royal Rumble, and that's going to set it up for Charlotte and Ronda at WrestleMania. And I think the most formidable foe at this point, no question, for Becky, and if there's somebody that's going to be, in my eyes now, able to believably have a huge matchup with Becky at WrestleMania, it's Asuka.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, come to think about that, too, One of the things, too, that was really great about that was with Ember eliminating Asuka in that Battle Royal to get back to Evolution, what I really liked was how they had them face off and how they promoted the fact that, these two, they had a great rivalry in NXT, and they had just those two I would love to see someday wrestle for a championship in the WWE like they did in NXT because they had some really good matches with each other down in NXT. But either way, though, with Nia obviously getting the opportunity, I was a little surprised for one thing. And I picked Nia, but the thing was that one reason why I was surprised because knowing the fact that you get a shot at the women's title, I'm interested to see why they're going to go back to Ronda versus Nia after we had seen it twice. I'm kind of intrigued by that because I'm like, okay, you had a few choices here. You could have had her face off with, I guess they don't want to pull the trigger on Natty turning heel yet. They want to wait for a minute or two for that, which I get.
If I was guessing, so you get a future women's championship match.
Yes.
If I'm guessing she'll probably be the December pay-per-view. I can't remember what the December pay-per-view is off the top of my head.
It's TLC because they moved it to December.
So you're probably going to see Nia and Ronda at the TLC pay-per-view. This will buy some time. She doesn't have to go in. I think that you're going to see some sort of a Nia Ember program or Nia and Tamina. I don't know how that's going to work out. But I think you'll probably get Natty and Ronda at Royal Rumble.
Probably.
And then after that, I think is when you'll start kind of building towards Charlotte and Ronda.
Do you think that maybe since they are doing the Ronda versus Becky Survivor Series match, do you think by any chance maybe they decide to pull the trigger then and have Natty not cost Ronda the match but attempt to?
Could be.
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Could be. Be a little earlier than I would expect. I mean, you could flip the main events and then have them at TLC. It's possible. You could do that. I don't know. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Andy also said, did y'all catch Shayna, Charlotte, Nikki promo on WWE? I guess the internet. Charlotte kind of teased how the WWE Four Horsewomen came together. I apologize, Andy. Your comment didn't go all the way through because Zuck hates us. If I catch the end of it, I'll read it. But I did not. I'll go back and take a look at it. You can send it to me. Message it to me, the link, and I'll take a look at it over the break that we're going to take in a few minutes.
Gotcha.
Kind of rounding back out the Battle Royal. I know Brodo, who I'm sure he'll chime in. Little surprised with the Iconics. We know that they're a great promo. I think me and Brodo both agree, particularly Peyton Royce. I like them both, but I'm a big fan of Peyton Royce. I like her work in the ring. Little surprised that they kind of just dumped them immediately.
Well, here's the thing. I understand what they were doing. Okay, they constructed the Iconics moment because everybody in the Battle Royal, excluding a couple people, got their moment. If it was a move, if it was a combination, whatever, they had a moment. The Iconics moment of this piece was them talking. Mm-hmm. I understand that's what they're known for more. That's fine. My concern that I brought up to you, and it's not really comparable, but I said I hope they don't make Peyton Royce like a Jillian Hall.
Agreed.
Like a strictly a comedic character who is known for talking and just saying annoying things. Obviously, Peyton Royce doesn't sing, but you understand my point. Peyton Royce, and this is no... I'll use another comparison that I brought up to you, and this is no disrespect to Carmella, because I think she's good at what she does, clearly. I mean, she got a belt for a reason. She was the Money in the Bank winner. If you put a belt on Carmella and had her run with it for a few months, I mean, it's not like she had it for a week. No. I see no reason why you can't do the same with Peyton Royce. She's better in the ring. I think she's underrated in the ring because I always go back, and I mentioned this to Chrome earlier, to that fatal four-way match in NXT. It was Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, Nikki Cross, and Asuka at NXT. It was for the title. And for a majority of that match, and it was a long match, it was Peyton and Asuka that were carrying it because Nikki Cross was pretty much, she was knocked to the ground for a majority because they put her through a table. And Billie Kay did some things, but Billie Kay's not nearly as good in the ring as the other two, or even the other three, to be honest. And Billie Kay's not, I'm not saying Billie Kay's like like Eva Marie. Like Billie Kay can get around in the ring, but you understand my point. So my only thing is this. They had so much momentum when they debuted last year.
Yeah.
And they made them, I mean, God, they debuted right after WrestleMania. You know what I mean? And it was a prime time moment they had. It wasn't like a random squash match. I mean, they had her interrupt Charlotte, of all people.
True. And here's the other thing, too. Not only that, too, it's set up for Carmella to win the title off of Charlotte. But here's the other thing, too. Somebody mentioned the SmackDown, or the tag team titles for women. That's another thing, too, that,
It's ideal for them, by the way.
That's why I think they're kind of not doing much.
And that's the thing too. But that's also another question. Where I was like, okay, so at Evolution you have the all women's pay-per-view. This is the best opportunity you have to debut said championships, but you just decided to pull back.
That's what we talked about, Crum.
But I don't think they want to blow their load on everything right away.
Gotcha.
I think that they want to. They're continuing this era of firsts. So this is going to give them another few months down the road to have another big announcement.
Mania. It's going to happen at Mania.
Could be something absolutely. It could be a tournament that starts at the Royal Rumble and goes for months.
And they can market that through the fast lane because obviously the time period between Rumble and WrestleMania is very long.
Right.
Yeah.
Or I could see them doing a second all-women's pay-per-view primarily based around a women's tag team title tournament. Maybe not the only thing.
Well, I'll tell you where you do it.
But that would give them another second time in the year to cash in on that opportunity.
I'll tell you exactly when you do it. You do it the weekend of Fastlane.
Yeah.
Because it's right in the middle of main pay-per-view, Royal Rumble with obviously an NXT right there. You have WrestleMania, which is going to have an NXT.
Right.
Fastlane, women's tag, women's tag tournament.
Right.
And a women's pay-per-view. That way, because no one's going to expect a title change to happen in between Rumble and WrestleMania for the women, or any title for the most part.
Unless Goldberg's in the main event. But anyway.
True, exactly. So I think that's a great idea. I think that's when they should do it, and it fits right along this timetable of they
Every
keep
6
building.
months-ish.
Yes.
Every 5-6 months-ish.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
We'll continue to talk the pay-per-view. I do have some more things I want to talk about as far as the Battle Royal. So we'll talk about it on the other side. Last couple quick Andy sent me the link. I'm going to watch that video he was talking about. He was basically saying it's how they could pull off the 4 horsewomen of WWE versus the MMA 4 horsewomen.
Real quick, Crow.
Yeah.
We have a Taka Michinoku sighting in the chat. Somebody mentioned Taka Michinoku.
Nice. Is that on the YouTube?
Yeah, it's Zill Jones.
Oh, God.
Zill, I love it, brother. Well, save those comments. So,
Oh,
again, if you're a
man.
first-time viewer or listener to A2D, we always, after the first hour, take a little bit of a break. We do hop off of the Facebook. We hop off of Instagram and Periscope. We go exclusively to YouTube. Second half of the show, we'll continue to recap Evolution. We'll talk about the upcoming Crown Jewel pay-per-view. We'll try to fit in a few new little news and notes. And we always do this day in wrestling history, although right now Zill's giving us all a whole wrestling history lesson.
Zill's the man. He's on
I'm
some of the
digging
other
it, brother.
shows. Yeah,
Hey,
he's the
the
man.
greatest
So
light heavyweight
if you're on
champion of all time.
YouTube, stick with us on YouTube. Please make the jump from Instagram, Periscope, and Facebook. We would appreciate it. First half of the show is brought to us by Specialized Physical Therapy, found in Burlington, Cherry Hill, and in Princeton. You can also find them on the web, specializedphysicaltherapy.com. Also brought to us by
Scanzano Sports Center, located at 5 Carnegie Plaza in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. You can give them a call at 856-889-3434 or visit them on the web at www.scanzanosports.com.
And don't forget about our tax boys at Gibson Mayer.
Absolutely.
We'll see you guys on the other side.
Peace.
everybody. I'm Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, and everybody's got a price for lazy booking. Hey, this is your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, and you're listening to the Lazy Booking. Go, it's true. It's damn true. Ho! Hey, folks, I'm WWE Hall of Famer Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and if you want to know what's going on in wrestling, check out Lazy Bookings. Ho!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Lazy Booking right here on A2DRadio.com. Brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy, located in Cherry Hill and Burlington and Princeton, New Jersey. And you can find them on the web at www.specializedphysicaltherapy.com. And we also are brought to you by Sports Outlet for all your sporting needs, located at 703 Black Horse Pike in Glendora, New Jersey. Give them a call at 856-939-2030. Email them at sportsoutletnj@comcast.net or visit them on the web at www.sportsoutletinc.com.
Did we have no bumps tonight?
No.
Survive the double.
Wow. Impressive. Quick programming alert, guys. Quick reminder at 10 o'clock tonight, Maddie's going to be with you at Hockey Happy Hour. Those guys are fantastic. So if you're a hockey fan, just want to remind you guys, stick with A2D tonight.
You don't want to miss tonight because at 10:30 the Flyers start playing the Kings.
Oh, and
so we got live reactions.
when you get live
coming your
reactions
way.
with those guys, especially this guy, it's a lot of fun. But welcome back, guys. You got your Ginger Gang, Chrome, Maddie Sudi, Ryan Brodo over on the ones and twos. We're recapping Evolution. And we are also attempting. We're also going to go over Crown Jewel. We're going to try to hop in a couple news points. The chat's been active, so we appreciate it, guys. As always, on the chat, by the way, we had. Hold on, I'm actually going back a little further. I missed a few. Oh man, they were talking a little bit while we were going off on our little rants here.
Ooh, nice. Don't you love it when the fam gets interactive?
I do. So Zill asked a really good question, and I'm actually going to save that question, Zill, in regards to Charlotte. But Hector said Cena could not wrestle, but he was great on the mic. I'm going to agree to disagree with some of that there. He said he was another Hogan. Zill said NXT has some legit stars on the roster, is full of talent. Can't wait to see some of those guys on the main roster. Rosca said they should build Asuka's streak again. I kind of agree with that. Not quite to the level it was, but she needs to start tearing through people again.
Well, not necessarily even just an undefeated streak. More like she's just headhunting at this point. She's just having fun hurting people.
And Zill chimed back in response to A2D, and he said that he would like to see Adam Cole and Velveteen Dream. I don't think Dream's too far away. Cole, I'm interested. I'm kind of curious.
I think. Do you think they're going to wait and bring up the entire Undisputed Era with them?
Probably. He also says Ricochet. Rosca says bring 3 titles that WWE should name 3 titles that WWE should bring back. Oof.
Well, that's a fun one.
The World Heavyweight title.
I mean, it probably would do a little bit better than the Twizzler Championship.
That's grown on me. The Universal title. Listen. I made every meme you could possibly think of. I wasn't a Twizzler champion. It was fruit roll-ups. It's kind of like you remember the fruit roll-ups? You would buy like the different themed ones, and you could kind of punch out the shapes in it.
They had the tattoo ones too for a period of time as well.
Yeah,
Reminds
absolutely.
me of Fruit Punch. It's Fruit Punch. That's what the belt is.
But it kind of grew on me over time.
It's Mr. Kool-Aid's championship belt.
I don't mind it. It kind of grew on me over time. I do think it would have been ridiculous because there was rumors that they were going to do it with the SmackDown title, the WWE title. I'm glad they didn't do that, but it did. It grew on me over time. I don't know. I know I'm in the minority.
Personally,
no,
sorry,
go ahead.
brother.
No.
I'm just not a fan of the design because everything is so similar. I'm like, I loved it when the belts looked different.
But,
just because like they're on a different brand.
But I believe the idea behind that is similar to how UFC, all the titles look the same.
Yeah,
I think that they are fusing what they do by differentiating them a little bit with a different look, but also kind of making them look the same.
I don't know.
The reason why I'm not a big fan, forget about the way it looks, I just don't understand what was so wrong with the World Heavyweight title. That's my main point, with all of the history behind it.
I know. I love that title. To me, it's still the best looking. Well, I like the
It was
wing.
classic. It was a classic looking belt.
I do like the Eagle Wing title belt personally, but second to that, it's that World Heavyweight title. I thought it was beautiful. I love that title.
The current best looking belt to me right now as a world championship is the IWGP, only because it's got the plates with all the past champions
That's cool.
on the side, which I think is really neat when you see that. It's like, wow, you could go through the entire history of the title, or at least up to a certain point, and it gets to you right in the middle. You're the current champion right now.
Yeah, no, I
always thought that was
I would
neat.
agree that that's pretty cool. I do like that dynamic.
What,
Overall look, it's not my favorite, but I do like that look.
Are there any other belts you wish were back? Because for a while, for years, it was, bring back the Cruiserweight. But we have that.
Well, we have that now. You know what belt I actually really liked the look of was the Undisputed title. I always thought that was kind of a neat looking
People
belt.
love that belt. I'm one of, and I'm in the minority. I just never thought it was that special of a looking title belt.
It might be me being a little biased because the last time Undertaker was WWE champion, he held that belt. So maybe that's a little bit of bias
But
right
a
there.
lot of people love that belt. Like, I'm not saying it's not good looking, but I just look at the different styles of world title belts that they've had over time, and it's not even in probably my top 5.
I just
The
think
belt that Hogan had before the wing belt, where
with
it was
the
kind
globe
of
on it, and
and
had
it was
the
like shaped.
flags on the side.
I loved that belt. I still think that belt looked awesome.
I just
Yeah,
think
he really
going
held that
back
title, actually.
to our conversation earlier, I just think if someone were to ask which belt we think should be introduced first, or the newest belt, I think we can all agree it's women tag.
Yeah, I could go new belts. There's no title belts other than the World Heavyweight that I would consider
And they would
bringing
never-
back.
they'll never bring
or,
that back.
Or titles. Maybe the European, but they're kind of doing that with the UK title.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just a different name, which
They're
I'm
not-
totally fine with because it's a true European title now.
Well, if they were going to keep the European title, when they did the original brand split, they could have just put the European title on SmackDown and kept the Intercontinental title on
Yeah.
Raw, and then that European title will probably still be around today. But they decided to make the U.S. title and changed it up.
Yeah, I just kind of like that the European title now pretty much as the UK title is
Pretty much.
a true UK title. So this is Zil had said Taka Michinoku is the greatest light heavyweight champion of all time.
He is.
I think he might be one of the only.
Legitimate ones.
Yeah. And then I think him and Roscoe went back and forth for a couple minutes. Roscoe says, "No, you're wrong, man. I'm the greatest. I'm the greatest light heavyweight champion of all time. 861 days. Call me crazy. That's how I will start wrestling at the age of 6 years old." So, if you started at 6 years old, were you the champion then? If so, at 861 days, you would only be like 8.5 now. So I have to figure that out.
Okay.
I have to decipher through that.
So while the math is being done.
But David says he's going to side with Zill. Roscoe said Andy Ritter, the light heavyweight division, should be big as the cruiserweight division. It's the same thing.
Pretty much.
David, the light heavyweight division is the cruiserweight division. Light heavyweight was WWE's answer to the cruiserweights.
Yes.
And he said he meant the light heavyweight should be as big as the cruiserweight division back in the Attitude Era in WCW. So he's saying it should have been, I guess, on the same par. Unfortunately, WCW at that time had revolutionized putting those guys more on the map. And I in fairness, I think WWE was just late to the show at that point, and the talent was so much thinner of what was available that those guys were, I mean, you're talking Jericho, Malenko. I mean, their worst guys were still decent wrestlers. They had corny gimmicks, but like Das Wunderkind, Alex Wright, like they were good wrestlers. That they put a lot of those guys put that title back on the map.
That too.
On the map.
And not only that too as well.
You know, they were in Mexico at that point, where they had Juventud Guerrera and all those guys.
Psychosis, and they had the best luchadors as well, and they had the Japanese wrestlers. Liger would show up and do shows.
Mm-hmm.
There was also Ultimo Dragon. You know, so you really didn't even have the option of going.
Always loved him, by the way. Ultimo Dragon. I was always an Ultimo Dragon fan.
Ultimo Dragon was great. Actually,
I love the Dragon Sleeper.
Strangely enough, though, when he was wrestling for WCW, I think he was actually on excursion from Japan, and he was living in Mexico and wrestling full time.
He might have been.
And that's why One time somebody had said to me, like, why is he wearing a Mexican flag on his cape and everything, and he's being billed from Mexico City? I'm like, I know why. He was on excursion at that time, because that's what they do in Japan. You go on excursion for a while. Naito did that, and that's why he wound up doing Los Ignorables when he came back, because he went on excursion to Mexico.
I mean, Zill said WCW had grade A talent at the time in the cruiserweight division. That's kind of, I mean, it does. As he's right. That says it all. I mean, at that point, it was slim pickings for as far as building that division up.
Yeah.
Getting back to Evolution.
Yes.
So what I enjoyed about, we kind of left it where Ryan was talking about the Iconics and whatnot. What made me a little bit okay with it was I do like how that sparked the match, because everybody kind of got rid of them. And then it was that kind of look around, and then you had seen slowly all of the younger talent now surrounding all the kind of, the iconic talent from past years. And that's kind of what fueled and kicked everything off, and I enjoyed that. So I thought that was kind of a cool moment right there, to kind of bring, past facing present, and having that quick moment of a stare down, creating a very brief but a moment. And then, boom, off with the races. So I enjoyed that. So it was kind of a way, even if it was sacrificing the Iconics in the beginning of it, to, and in fairness, if it was real life, the Iconics and the stuff that they say would be super annoying to anybody, doesn't matter if you're old or young. So everybody can band together, get rid of the annoying people, and then immediately kind of go at it. So I enjoyed that. I thought the match was good. I was surprised by a couple of things. A, Molly Holly being eliminated so early.
Yes.
Outside of Asuka, we already talked about Asuka. I was surprised how long Alundra Blaze was in there, Medusa. And I was surprised how long Ivory was in there. She was like a top 5 or 6 if you count Zelina Vega. And for women that are 20 years easily past their prime, or 18 years past their prime, I was impressed.
It was funny, actually, because when you see Ivory and you see her wrestling and everything, is like, my God, she could still go. Like, it's
She's still in amazing shape. Great. She looks like she's in great ring shape. But I think the Molly Holly one really surprised me, because she's one that I definitely think can still go. Now, again, we don't know. Maybe she has something going on that she couldn't go for a while.
Yeah.
But regardless, I thought it was good. And again, I heard nitpicking that, there was some sloppiness in it. And again, two things.
It's a battle royal.
It's a battle royal. You're going to have you're going to have people who haven't been in the ring for 10 or 15 years. There is going to be rust. They can work it out all they want, but when you're in that live environment with all that going on, you're going to have it. 2, every battle royal, including the Royal Rumbles, has sloppiness and flubbiness. It happens in every battle royal. There was nothing that stood out to me as like, ooh, that was a bad spot.
Well, since we've been diving into historical, Mil Mascaras showed up in the 97 Rumble and eliminated himself.
Oh, my God.
It doesn't make him not a legend.
Right. No, I totally agree with that. No, so I have to say that I was really happy with the match. I was fine with it. I didn't think that they tried to do too much with it, and it gave, again, a spot for Nia to stand out a little bit, and highlighted some people that I thought was good spots for them. I thought Tori Wilson looked good in the match. I thought everybody looked and played their part very well to make that an effective match and build a little bit of a nostalgia.
Yeah.
I personally thought it was cool, and knowing like her age, to see Alundra Blaze in there. And she didn't try to do more than she can do. She didn't try to be any kind of a massive standout in there. But I thought she played enough of a part, and she was noticeable enough to realize, holy shit, Alundra Blaze is in this match. But not like, oh, Alundra Blaze is in this match, and it's not good.
No.
And she was a phenomenal wrestler in her prime, by the way.
Absolutely. She would have these great matches on WWF television with one of the best Japanese wrestlers at that time, Bull Nakano. And even Bertha Faye, who everybody makes fun of because of how shitty the gimmick was, but she was she was a phenomenal female wrestler in her day too. Unfortunately, you'd have to go to Japan to really see her really good stuff, although she didn't have bad matches with Alundra Blaze. in
Yeah.
WWE.
Yeah, no, and there was a time when WWE first experimented with that women's division in the 90s. That was primarily built for Alundra Blaze,
Alundra Blaze,
for Medusa. They wanted to bring her in because she was a phenomenal talent. They didn't have a women's division then, so they created one so that they could bring that talent in.
Yeah, and it was amazing because they wound up doing the same match 4 or 5 times over again, particularly with Bull Nakano, but it was so good every single time that they even had the main event Raw one time, which is crazy. That would have been unheard of back then, that 2 female wrestlers would main event a national television wrestling program in a North American promotion was completely unheard of at that time.
And he says, I think Ivory got a long run because she never really got a good send-off back in the day. She just kind of faded away. Could be possible.
True.
Zill says, those women in the Attitude Era were a different breed. They all still really can go, and they look great. I totally agree with that, too.
Absolutely.
And then Andy said, even though Nia won, I think Ember and Tamina got the rub in the aftermath.
They did. They absolutely did. And one thing I will bring up, too, it is kind of a shame that now is when we get a women's pay-per-view and Evolution. There's one particular person I wish that would have been able to be there that night, and that was Luna Vachon. And it's kind of a shame that, she passed away way too soon.
Yeah.
It's kind of a shame because that would have been great for somebody like Luna who deserves all the credit in the world for doing what she did for wrestling for women, and she never got anything in this business except basically a fuck you every single time.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with her. And another big women's name was obviously Sherry. Unfortunately,
of
we have her.
course,
Not that I think
yeah.
she would have. She would not have been able to get in the ring at this point. I think she would have been like 60 years old. But it would have been cool to kind of give her, whether it was hosting the event, like they bring these hosts in, foreshadowing for Crown Jewel, giving her an opportunity to be a part of an event like this would have been huge because she was a true pioneer in the women's division as well.
Yep. And
Little disappointed that someone like a Wendy Richter didn't get a call.
yeah, that's a surprise, and then also, I think they had reached out to Gail Kim, but she refused because, honestly, WWE never really did anything with Gail Kim, so I could understand why.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, but to be fair, though, I mean, Eve Torres was there, and Beth Phoenix was on commentary, so it's like, okay, so they did reach out to other female wrestlers that I guess.
I think they pretty much reached out to everybody. And
Yeah.
I know that they reached out to AJ at one. That was
Which I'm not surprised she said no.
that was not exactly a surprise rumor or anything though.
No, and I'm not surprised that she refused them because if her husband's refusing everything,
Right.
I'm not surprised she is.
That's why I'm shocked they even asked her. Because I thought about that. I'm like, it would have been fun, given, if the stuff beyond the wrestling ring didn't happen, to see AJ come back. And I'm like, they probably didn't even ask her.
Well, they did. I think part of it, and they probably knew that she would say no.
It was
they
like
respect
a complimentary, like, here you go, here's
Well,
the
it's
offer.
a respect thing. Hey, listen,
Yeah.
the offer's there. We'd love to have you. And I think that it's a nod to what she did do. I thought she was very good.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been wrong, and it probably would have been more of a story if she hadn't been even acknowledged or called.
Good point. What would have been really interesting if she did accept? It would have been funny if they had just done something quick backstage where you just see Paige and her lock eyes. That would have been freaking hilarious because those two had a great rivalry back then.
And he's right. Actually, I did see this. And he said they reached out to Sable too, even though they didn't get her. Sable's open to doing some appearances, according to what I've read.
Oh,
Which,
no.
I would have been okay with an appearance from Sable, but I mean,
Limited
listen.
capacity.
Yeah, I know Brock's got her shackled up somewhere in Saskatchewan, so I don't know. But
Out in the backwoods of Canada.
but so Nia obviously got the win, and I was fine with the match.
All right.
I liked it.
On to the finals of the Mae Young Classic with Toni Storm and Io Shirai.
Great match.
Coming to think of that, too, since Asuka did not get the win in the Battle Royal, which I think you and Brodo were going with.
We did pick Asuka. That's correct.
yes,
Yeah.
So since she didn't get the win,
Thanks for reminding us, Manny.
Well, I'm only throwing this out there because then this leads into the Mae Young Classic.
No, we see what you're doing, Maddie.
Uh-huh,
We see what you're doing.
What? I can't subtly cut a promo on someone?
No, you can. We don't have to be happy about it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So, with that being said.
It's not subtle if you don't get to finish it before it's ending and I'm already shutting that shit down. There's no subtleness to it then.
It's all right. The attempt was there. So, with that being said, Mae Young Classic. Io Shirai did lose to Toni Storm, which
surprised me, but it didn't surprise me, I guess. You guys made a lot of really good points. Who did you pick? Did you?
I actually picked Toni, and the only reason
you did too.
I
Right?
picked Toni, and the only reason why was because I was thinking that
I think I'm the only one that picked Io Shirai.
because I thought a certain somebody would be retaining her title. We'll get to that in a minute. And so because of that, I thought, okay, so they're not going to have her win based on that, so Toni Storm's going to get the win.
Yeah.
So with that being said, Asuka didn't win the Battle Royal. Certain somebody didn't retain the belt. It's kind of interesting that they decided not to give Io Shirai the nod, and they decided to give it to Toni Storm.
David Rosca said that Medea should come to WWE.
Why?
And then A2D had said, "What the hell, David?" And then David said, "Medea is a good idea." That can't happen because Tyler Perry already told us that Medea is dying. So we're just going to kill that rumor right now.
That's definitely the reason why it wouldn't be a good idea. That's definitely the only reason.
I'm surprised, though, that when they were doing the special guest host of Raw, that there was not one time that Medea did not come
No,
up
I'm
as a
fine with it.
special-
We're good.
That would have been hilarious.
That was about as much Medea conversation as I have.
Maddie,
but that
with
wasn't
the
happening.
with the Toni Storm thing as well.
Yes.
The main reason, in my opinion, I brought this up last week, was I thought Toni Storm would be the one to win because they're trying to build up the UK division.
And they are.
And it's
That's fair.
perfect exposure. And
Fair
also,
point.
I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you guys remember a couple weeks ago, there was supposed to be a UK championship match with
which
the
we
women.
talked about was on the dark. It was a dark match.
I believe that part of why it was a dark match as opposed to being a televised on the actual pay-per-view match, I believe the only way that would have happened is if Io Shirai won it, because then it would have been like double exposure, which isn't a bad thing.
Right.
But I think they saw, okay, this is our outlet to really make Toni Storm look special, and she will be the representative of the the UK division, even though she's not technically the champion.
Right.
So I think that's the main reason. To be
Okay,
honest.
then.
No, and I think that's a fair point. I truly, personally, and I don't know this, I feel like originally the idea when you bring Io Shirai in, the idea was for her to win, but Toni Storm made a big name for herself in this tournament too.
Mhm.
And you're right, with everything in the evolution of the UK Women's Championship that's happening now, sometimes things change, or sometimes, what does Vince say? Grab that brass ring. Toni Storm did a great job, and it wasn't anything that was going to hurt Io Shirai. It was an amazing match.
No,
It
absolutely.
was a good opportunity to build a new superstar.
Now, here's another thing too. Going back to the very first Cruiserweight Classic, I'm blanking on his name. He's in New Japan. He was in the Final Four. He's an Asian wrestler. I can't believe I'm blanking on his name.
That.
I didn't watch the Cruiserweight Classic.
The one that T.J. Perkins won.
Oh.
You know who I'm talking about. He had the white and blue.
I had no interest in the Cruiserweight Classic.
Even the first one? Really? I'll think of the name. But my point is, when I think of the guy's name, I'm sure Andy or somebody in the chat will say it. He was originally supposed to win it, but they couldn't get him to agree to sign a contract.
Well, the problem is with Japanese wrestlers is sometimes they don't want to do the schedule that WWE is asking them to do away from home, and that's one of the major reasons why. Because with Japan, they're kind of used to that system, and that system works for them, and that is not the same as WWE at all. Less house shows, that's for sure.
Andy said that it was a dark match because supposedly the UK Women's title hasn't been shown on the UK show yet.
Which
would
okay,
make a lot of
so that
sense.
makes a lot of sense.
And he said there was no
Okay.
build-up for the match, which is why they still executed it. They just didn't have it. as a
Kota
television.
Ibushi.
Okay. Yes, Kota
Oh, right,
Ibushi.
Ibushi.
Yes.
He was originally supposed to win it, at least from my understanding, and they couldn't get him to agree to sign. Basically,
another
Well, I
reason
think that
why.
I think he was contractually obligated and couldn't get out of his contract.
Correct.
Not
I
only
believe
that,
I did read that.
Not only that, too, he actually was in the process
there you go,
right
Andy. Thank
after
you.
that. He eventually bulked up to go to the heavyweight division. So I don't even think he would have stayed a cruiserweight for very long,
Right.
considering the fact he was going to do that.
So let's get to the next match. We got to start
Alright.
plowing through some of these.
Next up, the 6-woman tag team matchup. I originally picked the Riot Squad only because I thought, okay, they're really pushing the Riot Squad. I actually thought they would give them the win. However, though, I'm not complaining that Sasha got the win, which I didn't really have a problem with the match.
Right.
Really.
It was fine.
it makes perfect sense. Like Mike and I had said, Sasha would get the pin because we believe she was the next contender. But given Nia is the contender, that's why it kind of does. It's odd to me.
But I do believe that they're now positioning Sasha for a rebuild, and I don't know that they're going to necessarily have to turn her heel to do it.
No,
It's almost like, it's almost like for me, and this is just my perspective, I feel like they're kind of taking the Seth Rollins route with her in a sense of, everybody said when Seth at first turned face, it was corny, it was, this and that, it didn't work, he was a better heel. I think the injury helped her, got her away from that Bailey program. I think they're going to do a slow build now with Sasha because they're very, very focused, it seems, with Sasha now since her return. And I think that they are going to rebuild Sasha back to being a main event contender.
That sounds like a good idea right there. I was just surprised only because of the Riot Squad, because we all know that Ruby is eventually going to be breaking out of that and becoming a future women's champion. There's no doubt in my mind. All right, next up, NXT Women's Championship match. And this surprised me.
Oof.
Shayna Baszler regained the women's title on Kari Sane with a little help from the two other horsewomen of the MMA world, which led to the referee stoppage. And, yeah, I was surprised by that. Unfortunately, not surprised in the sense of, oh, okay, does that mean they're going to bring Kari up? Probably not. So it's like, I don't know what they were doing with this one. This one kind of shocked me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. I do think it was an opportunity for them to introduce the horsewomen into everything. I apologize for this, by the way, guys. I just got over being sick, so that's why you see me occasionally take the headset off and cough to the side. But I do believe, to me, it's clear that Shayna needs to work more, and I think we talked about this last week. If she wins, it's a clear sign that she needs to be in NXT more. I'll give her this much. One of her better matches. I don't know how much that says. And I'll also say this. The more I hear her speak, Andy sent me that link. Andy, I did watch a few brief minutes of it. I'm actually going to go back and watch the whole thing of the round table with her, Charlotte, and Nikki Bella. She does come off a little more likable. I don't think she's not a hard worker, but something's not connecting. It's taken her much longer than it's taking Ronda, and that kind of concerns me. So maybe it's a good thing because I don't think we're going to be that far from seeing Kairi Sane come up. I think she's clearly ready to come up talent-wise. We'll see with that gimmick if they're able to kind of make that work on the main roster, but
I don't think that's really a big. See, if they're gonna do the Bailey gimmick, I think they can get away with doing the Kari gimmick.
Let me ask you a question: how well is the Bailey gimmick doing right now?
It's not great, but
well, that's you don't even need to say anything after that, Maddie. It ain't doing great. There's a lot of gimmicks on NXT that don't do great. I'm concerned about Velveteen Dream coming up because it's perfect for the setting of NXT. You hit that main roster, I don't think that's going to work, brother. I think that's going to flop on its face. I really do.
Well, we'll see.
He's a great worker. I love the gimmick in the setting, and it goes back to, we talked about the interview that Gargano gave about a month and a half ago where he's, the question was presented, I think it was the Dallas Fort Star or whatever, one of those papers in Dallas, they had asked him, is there people in NXT who want to stay there? And they talked about it briefly, kind of being a third brand. And there is people who what they have works so well down there. But the issue is, is it developmental? And that's kind of what it clearly is supposed to be. So is it fair for them to stay down there now and not give other people the opportunity to get that TV time to develop their own characters?
Yeah, it's tough.
I like Kyrie. I'd love to see her come up to the main roster. I'd love to see it work. I think kind of knowing the Japanese tradition of things, people would hopefully kind of understand why she does the gimmick, and she's explained it before. But I don't know that that's going to fly with the American audience.
Well, that's the thing, though. Only because she's Japanese, she can get away with it. Whereas when you have an American wrestler, it's kind of different. Where it's just like, okay, come on now, stop it.
Yeah.
I think that might skew it just a wee bit.
Yeah.
All right. SmackDown Women's Championship, the last woman standing match.
Match of the year so far for me.
And probably should have been the main event. But still, though, great matchup. And obviously, Becky, the correct woman, won this match. Takes nothing away from Charlotte. Was a great matchup. And, hopefully we can take a break from Charlotte and Becky.
We will.
Because that's the best way. It's like
they've already started to transition Charlotte away from it
which is good.
Which I like the angle that they're taking with it on SmackDown. Paige asking her, hey, great match. You have nothing to be ashamed of. I'd love for you to be a leader and lead the women's SmackDown team. And now Charlotte's kind of like questioning, does she deserve to be in that position? I like that. I like the angle they're taking with it. They're moving her off of Becky at this point. Cool. I dig it.
Yep.
Becky's now got to focus on Ronda, which I'm excited about that. Loved this match. Match of the year at this point for me of anything, men or women. When you talk about the storytelling, the work that they put in, the high spots, the sacrifice that they put in. These women went all out. They did the spots where they went back and forth throwing the chairs in, and then they utilized all that inside of the ring.
They did the Terry Funk.
They did the Terry Funk. I loved it.
Yeah.
And clearly, with the table spots, Charlotte, they had the one flub, and it's not a flub on them that they couldn't go through the table, went right up, and they just did it again. That happens, How many times have I talk about it all the time that you can bet anytime Randy Orton puts somebody on the announcer's table, if you ever watch, almost every single time, he always needs more than one attempt. It never breaks, and it's always Randy Orton when he does it. That stuff happens. It was still a great spot.
It used to happen a lot back in 2000 and in the Attitude Era. They would try to go through the announce table, and the announce table wouldn't break.
Yeah.
And then it would crack like 5 minutes after they tried to get back up. And you're like, oh, crap, that wasn't the table you were supposed to go through.
Yeah. But I think, I loved everything about this match. I loved the finish of the match. I thought that both women came out looking extremely strong in this match. It was a fantastic match.
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely a great matchup. I look forward to seeing what Becky does in her future title defenses. Don't know who she'll face. Obviously, it's really just filler until, as you would allude to, Asuka eventually taking the title off of her.
Yeah.
For Charlotte, I'm really intrigued to see what they do with her next and kind of building her, not back up, but getting her in line to eventually get back into the title picture.
I dig it. I like that. I like the whole kind of maybe a little bit of a loss of, they're teasing a loss of confidence. Build her back up over the next 3 weeks before Survivor Series.
Absolutely. All right, and then the main event, the Raw Women's Championship match, Ronda Rousey against Nikki Bella with Brie in her corner. And, of course, Ronda did win, which I'm pretty sure there were people who were scared shitless that Nikki Bella was going to beat Ronda. Anyone
who thought that's a dummy, by the way.
I heard
Sorry,
it.
guys,
I literally heard it. I was like shocked that I was hearing it too. It was like, they're not going to do that.
No, they would never do that.
That would be the dumbest thing in the history of the world if you take a big name talent like Ronda and you just bury her ass right there on the first ever women's pay-per-view by having Nikki win the women's championship.
Let me tell you what, the US on the WWE and on the USA Network, they did a special it was kind of like the road to Evolution, and it was a half-an-hour show, and it was kind of just showing from really they mentioned previous to, but it kind of started where the Evolution started, where Alundra Blaze kind of we talked about where like they put a full effort in on the women, sort of where it started with Alundra Blaze and then it went into the Attitude Era and everything and so on and so forth. It was so Ronda Rousey heavy, particularly the last half of it, that if you are that dumb and naive to believe that they would have even entertained the idea to bury Ronda with Nikki Bella, then I don't know what you're watching. I mean, that sounds like a real smarky thing. Maybe you just buy into it. But the only people who I believe who would be legitimately concerned about that would be people who are marks who say, well, it's WWE and Ronda's not a WWE person, yada, yada, yada. Dude, WWE is a business. If anything with Crown Jewel right now, they're proving that they are a business about money.
Yeah.
And there is no bigger money draw in WWE right now than Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, and also the other people, too, are the Bella haters and the people who, because they, as Ronda had said that, Nikki knocked down the bedroom door of John Cena and everything like that. So everybody's like, oh, well, politicking and everything like that. I'm like, listen, yes, does backstage politics happen even today in WWE? No question about it. It can happen to anybody, but it's not going to happen to Ronda Rousey. The moment someone even alludes to that idea, that's the moment that someone would tell you to get the fuck out of Vince's office. Like, it would not happen.
So Zill says Charlotte is so big time, by the way. And Andy agreed that it was the match of the year. Jared Beard chimes in. He says, what's up, guys? Or he says, hey, guys, what's up, Jared?
What's
Welcome
up?
to the show, man. Catching the last 15 or so minutes of it. Appreciate it. Moving on to, that match. So Ronda and Nikki. It exceeded my expectations. I think it didn't do them. I agree with you in the sense of seeing how that last woman standing match unfolded, and we kind of knew it was going to be like that. I think it was tough for them to follow. I don't believe they did them any favors with that position on the card. But I also feel like I can't fault them.
No.
Ronda freaking Rousey is your big money draw right now.
Well, yeah, it was the same issue they ran into at WrestleMania 25. What followed Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, Triple H versus Randy Orton? Well, it doesn't matter if the match was good. It doesn't matter if the build-up was good.
Yeah, I mean, listen. Ronda Rousey, that is so huge for this women's division that it came from where it was to where you can draw a talent like Ronda Rousey, a legitimate, decorated fighting talent who not only is now a part of the show, what's up, Greg, by the way, but has just engulfed herself and jumped in head first and is such an important part of the show that, she's all in. There was a time where women fighters, legitimate women fighters would laugh in a swimsuit model's face. Because that's what they went for, were swimsuit models and calendar models. They didn't give a shit about your athletic talent. The fact that Ronda now is a focal point and wants to be there and be a part of continuing the growth of this women's movement, that needs to be the closing match. I don't care if she was wrestling Jacqueline, that needed to be the closing match.
Well, that's the same thing, too. It's like with Lesnar. Why is Brock the main event? Like, well, first off, he's the champion. Second of all, he's a big name, and you're going to watch because you want to see him lose that title. He's got to be the main event.
The only favor they could have done them is maybe move one of those 6-women tag matches, probably the Riot Squad match, in between to give people a little bit of a coming down.
Break. Yeah, that probably would have served them.
But I thought it was a good match. I thought it was much better than I thought. I was worried that Nikki was going to break her neck again, and she didn't. So, listen, kudos to them. I thought Nikki had a good showing. The right person won the match. And again, I love everything that Ronda is doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's if you're not on the Ronda train now, then you're just a hater. It's as simple as that.
It's that simple because she's giving you every reason and then some to get on board. Crown Jewel, guys, we got to get to it. We promised we would get to it. We're going to try to jump this in here. We're going to go off about 35 or 40, so we want to try to get it in. clearly the controversy, we're just going to touch on it. We're not going to get a deep conversation. You know, WWE, is it going to happen in Saudi Arabia? We know the story about it. We don't need to rehash it. WWE basically just bit the bullet and said, listen, there's other U.S. companies that are continuing to work in Saudi Arabia right now. They're not, by no way are they, absolving themselves from continuing to function. They said in the end, it was a business decision. They talked to their stockholders and said, listen, there's a $20 million loss on factoring in our annual growth of where we're going to be by the end of the year. This pay-per-view alone is a $20 million loss off of that by the end of the year.
You have to do it, even if it is a glorified house show again. You have to do it.
I mean, at this point, and there's no condoning anything, but I understand the idea of it. There are companies that are continuing to work in Saudi Arabia that are, operate. There are U.S. companies that operate out of there. I get it. I don't think that anybody who chooses not to be a part of it, though, should have any kind of repercussions against them.
No.
And I do believe that the time will come as this story develops that they will pull out of this Saudi deal. I just think it was the timing was so bad and put them in such a bad spot.
Yeah, it was it's just been bad luck for a lot of things WWE's been trying to do between all the things that happened with Roman and everything. It's just been a rough month for WWE in general.
So that's it. So Hulk Hogan has been announced. He is the host of the event. Lets him kind of slip under the radar because it is televised during the day, as the Wrestling Observer reported. That's not a accident that they are having him host this event. It's in the middle of the day, and with the other controversy as well, it kind of lets him kind of slip in under the radar a little bit and kind of slowly build him back into there.
True.
So let's run down the card. Let's give our predictions.
Sure. So WWE World Cup Tournament, which is the bulk of the show.
King of the Ring.
Yep. First round matchup, Bobby Lashley with Lio Rush, replacing John Cena versus Seth Rollins.
I was going to say, I used to not have my mic on. For the sake of time, do you want to give predict who you think the final two will be?
We just said we're going to do like 10 minutes. We're going to go to 35 just to run them down. I'm going to go who I think the final or two are going to come out of each side.
Okay.
So I believe that it's going to be Seth Rollins off of the Raw side. And I believe on the SmackDown side, it's going to be The Miz. And I believe that Dean Ambrose is going to cost Seth Rollins, and then The Miz is going to win the tournament.
I'm going to say, The Miz on the SmackDown side. Yeah, it's got to be Seth Rollins because you can't have a heel versus heel final. So, we're going to go that route with me.
Okay. Who's winning?
I'm going to say The Miz because... Okay. Again, they're elevating him to the world title. This is the way to do it.
Brodo?
I'm just going to say Rey Mysterio wins the entire thing.
Yeah?
Okay. Ray. All right. That's interesting. All right. And tag team matchup. D-Generation X, Shawn Michaels, Triple H against the Brothers of Destruction, Kane and The Undertaker for the very first time and probably only time.
Ooh. I'm going to say that I believe the Brothers of Destruction are going to win this match because I do believe that there is going to be a Shawn Michaels Undertaker match at Survivor Series, and I believe that Shawn Michaels will get the W over Undertaker there. So I believe they'll exchange victories here.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It's probably going to be just like that. It's probably going to be Triple H taking the fall, and that will set up Taker versus Shawn for the future.
Brodo?
I'm sorry, which match was it? I'm sorry.
The Brothers of Destruction and DX.
Oh, it's going to be Brothers of Destruction.
Yeah, I think that's going to set up the Shawn Michaels Undertaker match.
All right, then. So Undertaker will have a new undefeated streak at Saudi Arabia. And then the WWE Championship match. AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe.
1, 2, 3. AJ Styles.
Styles.
The filler.
Yeah,
It's a filler
know
match.
that
It's an
one.
emergency scenario.
Here's my issue real quick with this match. Why, if you had to fill in somebody last minute, and I love that it's Joe. I love that Joe's going to be a part of the card and that we now know he's healthy. But why Joe? Because you're just feeding another guy that can't take another title loss. That's my issue with it. But
well, the problem is that, if worse comes to worse, you could always just do Nakamura. I mean, you already had him buried by AJ, so you might as well just go with it full force now.
Sorry, Andy, I'm producing over here, buddy. I'm pressing
anyway.
1,000 buttons. I actually am with the program, my dude. I'm literally pressing the on button to the program, my dude.
Oh, God. Nothing like some venom getting spewed. All right, on to the Universal Championship.
Just a quick heads up for Andy. So I actually read this today. He's pulled from the list of talent because they're slipping. It was a whole slip under the radar. They pulled him from the list before they announced he was going to be the host. So it's that him being pulled from the list has nothing to do with it. He's still hosting the event.
Gotcha.
Hogan. We're talking about Hogan.
So the WWE Universal Championship, obviously.
Braun Strowman.
Yeah, I can't see them putting it back on Brock.
No, this will be their way that they can get Brock off and they can get the big money ticket here. Brodo?
It has to be Braun.
It's Braun.
Yeah.
It's absolutely Braun.
Yeah.
I can't if they put it back on Brock.
Oh, God.
Do they really want nuclear heat? The only way they do that is if they put it on Brock and then Drew McIntyre wins it the next night.
Right.
They can't do this again. They can't.
The only way for them to even get away with putting it on there, it would have to be in Saudi Arabia because it's not like you have to worry about them burning a stadium down. But if you did it in the United States, that city's going up in flames. Whew.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that this is going to be Braun's moment, and they can kind of write Brock off for a little bit.
True.
I do not take out account the possibility of Paul Heyman turning on Brock as well.
Well. Could this be the outlet for something I've been asking for ever since you've known me, Crumb?
Could be.
For Drew McIntyre to finally become a Paul Heyman guy?
Oh, I thought it was about that Alexa Bliss clone.
That's an all-fair conversation.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Anyway, back to
That's
this.
another possibility. I could see
the
that
clone?
happening. No. Christmas is around the corner. So.
Yes. 'Tis the season.
No, that
Pumpkin
is
dream.
that is definitely a possibility for that to happen. So,
Hey, Bri.
hey, Bri. Is that the last match?
Yeah, that was the last match.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Also, interesting note point: women can't compete there, but Renee Young can work on the commentary, which is interesting. Anyway, the controversy of this card, we know that surrounds it. I'll still watch it, but I'll watch it on my time. I won't need to rush and watch it on Friday. But we'll see. I mean, it's a house show, so it's a glorified house show with the return of Shawn Michaels. So, guys, good stuff this week. We appreciate you all jumping in here on Facebook, on YouTube, Periscope, Instagram, and all the good stuff that we have.
All right, then. So, Lazy Booking was brought to you by Gibson Mayer LLC, your certified public accountants located at 301 Oxford Valley Road in Yardley, PA. You can give them a call, 215-369-3300. Tax season is coming up, so be ready, be prepared, and call Gibson Mayer, or you'll get a visit from that man. You don't want that. And also, we are brought to you by Specialized Physical Therapy, located at Cherry Hill, Burlington, Princeton, New Jersey. And you can find them on the web at www.specializedphysicaltherapy.com.
Yeah, great stuff, guys, this week. Next week, we'll recap Crown Jewel. We're also gonna do one of the tournaments. Let us know what you want to do. Let us know on Facebook. If you're not in the Real Talk group, join the Real Talk group. We'll put a post in, maybe a little poll, and we'll see what we get you guys to do. Intercontinental Tournament or greatest hardcore champion of all time. Until next week, guys, enjoy your week. Stay tuned. Hockey Happy Hour. This guy, this other handsome man named Brian Daly who just walked in, and another handsome man by the name of Michael Klankoff. All can bring great hockey action and live reaction to a Flyers game. I love it. It's the best. Guys, we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Peace.